That day, in a small village on the edge of a lush green forest, the rain had just stopped. The air was crisp and fresh, as if the earth and sky themselves were holding their breath, waiting for a miracle to unfold. Inside a modest thatched roof hut, a poor farmer named Laxman and his wife were welcoming the most precious gift of their lives, a baby boy born after many long years of waiting. The couple had endured countless hardships, meager meals, harsh harvest seasons, and quiet, aching hopes. But the moment the child let out his first cry, all their struggles seemed to fade away. They named him Vijay, meaning victory, because they believed love and hope had triumphed over fate. The joyous news spread through the village like a gentle wind. Neighbors came bearing fruits and flowers to offer their congratulations. The very next morning, amidst this happiness, a wandering monk appeared, eyes deep as a still lake, draped in a worn saffron robe, and chanted for alms at Laxman's doorstep. Being a devout man, Laxman invited the monk into his home, offered him water, and said with reverence, "Maharaj, our son was just born. Please, bless him and give him a name." The monk gently took the baby into his arms. But then, his eyes paused. On the child's tiny palm was a curious mark, a circle with a red dot at the center, a rare symbol known as Rajyog, the mark of royal destiny. The monk smiled, but Laxman noticed a flicker of astonishment in his expression. "Is something unusual?" Laxman asked softly. The monk shook his head gently and replied in a calm voice, "Not unusual, but extraordinary. This child bears Rajyog. His destiny is already written in the stars. At the age of 18, he will marry a princess and become king of this land." Laxman and his wife were stunned, as if they were hearing a fairy tale. More villagers gathered, whispering in awe. A child born in a straw hut, destined for the throne? But when destiny speaks, it does not only summon the chosen, it also awakens greed, fear, and schemes from those who do not want it to come true. Elsewhere, the current king of the land was lost in the forest, having strayed too far on horseback. Weary and parched, he stumbled upon the outskirts of Laxman's village. An old hermit gave him water and casually mentioned the prophecy stirring the hearts of the villagers. At that moment, the king's face turned pale. "How can this be? A peasant's child? Marry my daughter? Take my throne after me?" The old sage simply smiled, as if speaking to the wind. "Whether you believe it or not, what is written will come to pass." The rumor of the child born with Rajyog spread like dry fire through a wind-blown forest. The hopeful grew excited. The schemers grew afraid. And amid the storm of prophecy, the king returned to his palace, his heart no longer at peace. That entire night, he sat still in his opulent chamber. His gaze drifted far, but his soul churned with a quiet storm. The monk's words from the forest echoed again and again. "He will marry your daughter. He will succeed your throne. Number that cannot happen." The king had spent half his life guarding this crown, preserving power, clearing the path for his only daughter, Princess Rajshri, the jewel of the kingdom. How could he accept a farmer's son as royal son-in-law? The next morning he summoned his most trusted servant, a cold-eyed, silent man named Pima. "Go to the village of Chandpur," the king commanded, his voice as chilling as the morning wind. "Find the child with the kingly fate, and ensure he does not live long enough to fulfill what has been written." Pima bowed without a word. Meanwhile, in the village of Chandpur, Laxman had no idea that he had just brushed the edge of light and shadow. He continued tilling his land, caring for his newborn son, and living a quiet, humble life. Vijay, only a few weeks old, slept peacefully in a bamboo cradle, his tiny fists clenched, as if grasping the dream the heavens had given him. Every time he smiled in his sleep, his mother whispered softly, "You must be dreaming of a beautiful place waiting for you." No one knew that soldiers were approaching, led by Bhima, carrying a command to erase the future of an innocent child. But destiny is not so easily killed. That night Bhima reached the hut, but the door was flung wide open. The house was empty. The child was gone. Far away, deep in a secluded forest monastery, an old monk in a brown robe lit incense and sat in meditation. Just then, a shadow arrived at his door. It was the same wandering monk, the one who had first read the child's fate. He gently placed the sleeping infant into the elder monk's arms and spoke in a voice soft as wind. "Keep him safe. The darkness has begun to move, but light always finds a path, even if it must go the long way around." The monk looked at the sleeping baby, his tiny lips curled into the faintest smile, as if dreaming of a world that still didn't know his name. "I will raise him as a disciple," the monk said quietly. "No one will know who he truly is, not until the moment written in the stars finally arrives." Years passed. Deep in the southern jungles, the monastery of Rudra Tapovan stood still, like a forgotten dream. No drums echoed, no loud chants broke the silence. Only the breath of wind whispering through the leaves, and morning light resting gently on the shoulders of the seekers. There, Vijay grew up. No one knew who he was. No one asked why no family ever visited him, or why he had no past to speak of. Only Guru Acharya, the old monk who had raised him from swaddling cloth, knew the truth. This boy does not merely carry Rajyog, he bears the karmic weight of a people. At 12, Vijay was taller than his fellow disciples, his eyes deeper, and above all, he carried in his heart an unnamed sorrow. He learned quickly, remembered deeply, and was unusually sensitive to the pain of others. Once, when a student was punished unjustly, Vijay said nothing. But that evening, as Guru Acharya meditated alone, Vijay approached, bowed low and whispered, "I know I shouldn't interfere, but if silence lets wrong be accepted, is that still the path of truth?" The Guru opened his eyes. He wasn't surprised. "You are not an ordinary soul. The restlessness in your heart is your soul remembering that it was not born for peaceful days alone." One night, under a full moon and a cool breeze, Acharya led Vijay to an open clearing behind the monastery. And there, after more than a decade of silence, the truth was spoken. You are not an orphan. You were not abandoned. You were hidden. Because some feared what you would become if you were allowed to be yourself. Vijay was quiet. Something inside him broke, not with rage nor with shock, but with a quiet, powerful tremor. "Who are my parents?" he asked. "Your mother," Acharya said gently, "passed away when you were just a few months old. Your father, he lives in a palace of gold. He wears the title of king, but lacked the courage to believe in destiny." From that day on, Vijay changed. He rose earlier, meditated longer, studied deeper, not just scriptures but also law, governance, and the history of kingdoms. No one forced him. No one truly understood why a child would bear such invisible hunger, as if he were preparing for a day when his name would be called before the world. And that day was drawing near. In a distant palace, Princess Rajshri had grown into a brilliant young woman, intelligent, sharp, yet still unmarried. The king, the man who once ordered the death of an infant, was now haunted by strange, restless dreams. He dreamed of a young man in monk's robes, standing atop a hill, surrounded by kneeling villagers. And just as the king moved closer to demand his name, the man turned away and left behind a wooden staff, engraved with the royal emblem of the very dynasty the king ruled. The winds had shifted. Birds from the north returned home. At the monastery of Rudra Tapovan, Vijay was now 18, calm, composed, and with eyes that saw beyond the forested mountains around him. One morning, Guru Acharya handed him a wooden staff. At its crown, faintly carved, was the three-petal lotus, symbol of ancient royal authority. In the capital, Princess Rajshri announced a contest, a test of wisdom, justice, and eloquence. The winner would become her personal advisor. But in truth, it was a quiet search for someone worthy of ruling the realm. Scholars came, warriors, ascetics from remote mountains. Among them, no one noticed the slender young man in coarse robes, carrying a wooden staff, with eyes that burned like iron in quiet fire. It was Vijay. The challenge would last 3 days. Day 1. Justice. A land dispute between villagers and the royal estate. While others scrambled to quote ancient laws, Vijay simply said, "A ruler is the guardian of the land for the people, not the owner of people for the land." The square fell silent. Princess Rajshri looked up, her gaze lingering on the boy with the staff. Day 2. Eloquence. The question, who deserves the throne? Many spoke of bloodlines, conquests, and strength. Vijay said, "To rule, one needs no royal blood, but a heart that aches when the people starve, and hands clean enough to hold power without clinging to wealth." The princess felt something stir within her, not from his words, but from his gaze, as if he had known her from another life. Day 3. Reflection of the self. Each contender was led into a chamber holding a sacred mirror, said to reveal the soul's true form. Vijay entered. No crown appeared, no throne. Only an image of a child wrapped in red cloth, lying in the forest beside a half-burnt letter. Then the mirror showed a mother embracing her baby one last time, and a father turning away, his eyes filled with fear. "It is time for you to rise," whispered a voice, "not to claim a throne, but to return truth to it." On the day of judgment, Vijay stood before thousands. The princess stepped forward to announce the winner. But then, a senior minister dropped to his knees. "Your Highness, we have erred for 18 years. The young man before us bears the marks written in ancient prophecy. He holds Rajog and Dharma in a single soul. He is the lost prince, the king's son." The moment of truth. The aging king was summoned. He came, trembling, face worn by regret. When he saw Vijay's eyes, he knew. This was the child he had once ordered to be killed. The king fell to his knees, but Vijay reached out and lifted him up. "You did not kill me, father. You feared what you could not understand. Today, I do not return to reclaim anything. I came only to say one thing. Sometimes, destiny must wander deep into the forest to learn how to rule without a throne." Vijay did not take the crown. He chose instead to become the royal advisor. He lived simply, as a monk. No palace, no marriage. Princess Rajshri remained by his side, not as wife, not as lover, but as a kindred spirit. Together, like two stars in the night sky, never claiming one another, but forever illuminating the path ahead. And so the story was passed on. There was once a prince, born to rule, but raised to lead. He did not live for his destiny. He lived to awaken the destiny of an entire people.